And here we are, my friends. If rumours are to be believed, and we made a big hint about it during SmackDown soon, WWE Raw and WWE SmackDown will leave the Performance Center and go to the Amway Center instead. So, given that we have been in the PC for so long, I think we should all just take 1 second to remember the good times. We're not going to do that because that would be weird, and also, it wasn't actually fun when you remember it. I miss the damn fans. But that's the future, and we are talking about the present, and we're also kind of talking about the past, and that means it's time to up those downs for this week's SmackDown. Don't forget to travel back in time to yesterday and check out Money in the Bank 2011, which was this week's retro ups and downs. Also, look out for the poll on Tuesday. SmackDown began with Michael Cole and Corey Graves telling us that WWE had bolstered up security just in case Retribution were hanging around, and then we cut to two of these security guards that looked like they could have been knocked over by a strong wind. Oh, how I laughed. And also, what are they trying to stop? Like Retribution sneaking up to an alcohol store and buying underage booze? Come on. We were also told that everything that Bray Wyatt had been doing recently was to entice Braun Strowman back to SmackDown. And I actually shouted out, "What? He's drowned. He's dead." You can't entice back a dead person. That's called a zombie. Thankfully, Big E then saved the day as he cut insert promo as he was making his way to the ring for a match where he said everybody who thinks this is my first attempt at a singles run are liars. Liars. Brilliant. He then talked about the time that he was the NXT champion, and I really like that. Why even do these things if you can't reference them when it makes sense? Couple of thumbs. John Morrison also responded, and I think he said that he was going to take his foot and stick it into Big E's mouth. Still trying to process it. Now, we were meant to get this match, but alas, that security from earlier were completely crap at their jobs because Retribution, I assumed, had beat them up, and they made their way down to the ring. Now, I do appreciate what WWE is trying to do here, and I did think that it was far better later on, but during this segment, it still just felt a little bit lame, and when they did run off after beating up Big E and John Morrison, it was the equivalent of the headmaster shouting at them, "Well, we've phoned your parents!" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, mum and dad," and they ran. And really, it's just small things like this, because while Michael Cole and Corey Graves were absolutely terrified, the crowd, the fans, who we know are fake to begin with, they just stood there going, "Boo, boo." You wouldn't boo people that you thought were out there to cause proper carnage. You would be terrified as well, and you would run off. So it's just these little things we need to tighten up. Again, we'll talk about more later, but in terms of here, let's get them down. So look, we are halfway there. We are halfway there, like Bon Jovi. But halfway after 3 weeks ain't good enough. All the roster was in the back talking about this afterwards, including Baron Corbin, who said, "I'll take care of this because I'm the king." But he was also dressed in a suit with a crown on his head, so how much are you going to trust that guy? Big E refused to back down from any of this and said that he will have his match with John Morrison later because ain't nobody getting in the way of that. And after he and Sheamus, wink wink nudge nudge, had a falling out, Big E and Sheamus both stormed off in opposite directions. This also ties into a tweet that Big E did, I think a couple of hours before SmackDown, where he basically said, "Well, Retribution, they're a pile of crap." So I guess that's the direction we're headed in. Big E was the saving grace of all of this, so don't forget to get on the Big E boat and ride it all the way to Universal Title Town. I just need that sense of dread, I need that sense of dread, like, oh no, not Retribution. And I'm not getting it at the moment. We then got a hell of a lot of information thrown at us. It was like this, smacking me in the skull. Because it was Bayley and Sasha Banks in the ring, so I got excited because they're always good. And as well as the triple brand battle royal that we're about to see, who will determine the #1 contender for Bayley's championship, they just let loose, oh yeah, Payback, that was our pay-per-view that's happening 1 week after SummerSlam. Well there, we're gonna be defending our tag team titles. Who decided that? I know he's up there. Banks was really good here too, because after she had said, well look, after Raw, now I have to face Asuka at SummerSlam, she said it with so much disdain in her voice, you could tell that she was a little mad at her best friend. That was excellent. And I really liked the idea for this battle royal too, and I thought it was executed very nicely, plus it had a bunch of people that maybe you'd forgotten about, because we had the Iconics, both of them, Tegan Nox from NXT, as well as Shotzi Blackheart, Lacey Evans, Tamina, Naomi, Liv Morgan, Ruby Wright, Nikki Cross, Bianca Belair, Dana Brooke, Shayna Baszler, and wait for it, Asuka. The Empress was great because as soon as she arrived, she went after Sasha Banks and Bayley because flub those guys. And I'll just sort of jump to the finish of this quickly, but we'll talk about some other bits in between. The last two, which is where it got really interesting, were Asuka and Shayna Baszler. And there was some confusing things during this because one, Nikki Cross was just here and I was like, wait a minute, what happened to that story with her and Alexa Bliss? And we got that segment later, so that was all flubber-magoo, and we should have switched that around. And yes, far too many people were eliminated here by those that had already been eliminated. Now, is that something that WWE has done since the dawn of time? Yes. Is it dumb? Yes. Does it secretly tickle me and I like it? Yes. Now, we did have to have some shenanigans right through to the end, because even when Baszler and Asuka were having this really quite intense and hard fight towards the finish, well, when Baszler did throw Asuka out, she wasn't eliminated because she just landed on Bayley and Sasha Banks. And that's the other dumb rule when it comes to battle rules and Royal Rumbles. Both feet have to touch the floor, and boy howdy does WWE mean it literally. Baszler was still able to lock on the Kira Fuda clutch, so I was like, maybe that was just like a little bit of a tease. But no, Asuka then did get rid of her, so she is now not only the #1 contender for the SmackDown Women's title, but she's also the #1 contender for the Raw Women's title. Go Asuka. Now, on the one hand, this one you could say, well, this is a missed opportunity to light a fire under somebody else, and I actually take your point. But do you remember how upset and devastated we were like a year ago when nobody was treating Asuka with any kind of respect? Well, now she's dominating everyone, and I'm not going to pretend I'm not digging this. I'm digging it like Booker T is getting it up. It also makes the story quite interesting because she now has 2 title matches at SummerSlam, 2, and you just know that's going to tie in with whatever fallout is building between Sasha and Bayley. I got a mighty kick out of this. Somebody kicked my ass. What? We are going all in with her as well, because when Sasha and Bayley were in the back going, this is a bunch of crap and I can't believe it, she turned up again and she whooped them both down for the second time of the night. You just couldn't stop her. Nobody was ready for the Empress. And I suppose you could argue the reason we did the Gaga when Asuka was technically eliminated but not is because it gives the heels something to be super mad about. That's all right. We then learned via a Mandy Rose promo that it is going to be Sonya Deville versus Mandy in a hair versus hair match. Now, everybody calm down. Everybody just take a breath, because that does mean a narrative within WWE is ending in a stipulation contest that makes sense. I'm shocked. Rose was also great here, as was Deville, when she responded later to accept all of this, and this is one of the best feuds in all of WWE and not just on SmackDown. It was ruined just a teeny tiny little bit later because of somebody else, but again, we'll talk about it. But these two, they getting it up. Sheamus then told the extra security for Retribution to go home. I know, you tell me. I suppose Sheamus hired them so he can now fire them too. It tied into earlier when he was all like, oh, I'm Sheamus so nobody will attack me because they're terrified. I thought he had gone good guy last week. I mean, I never know for sure. Somebody tell me. And then it was here that we got the follow-up between Nikki Cross and Alexa. You see, this was all out of sync and didn't kind of make any sense. Anyway, Nikki was begging with her best friend, please forgive me, I'm so sorry. And Bliss was like, look, I can't deal with your shib right now. I'm caught up in this stuff with the Fiend and Braun Strowman, and later on, I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. I mean, I could have told her that was a terrible idea, but she was gonna do it anyway. And then next up was Sheamus versus Shorty G, and I don't think I've ever been so confused in my entire life, because Sheamus is now back to being the big bad bully, but Shorty G was being pitched by the commentators that he's also a bad guy now, but then in the ring, he just got his ass whooped like he was the lovable underdog. Oh my gosh, could somebody please help? It was me, the wizard in the sky who secretly controls all of WWE, and I've lost my combs. My hair keeps getting in the mouth. Look, I'll level with you. I really like Shorty G because I also like Kit Kats, I like Bourbons, I like cookies, and I like shortbreads. Those Marylander numbers are delicious, and because Shorty G sounds like he's a biscuit, but a biscuit who's alive, as if I used my powers, I am now trying to push him to the moon. La 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 bean! And I'll continue to do it even when it makes no sense, because it was me, the wizard in the sky. All right, yeah, of course, I should have known down. The match was all right, though, to be fair. I thought both guys worked really hard, and even though, yes, Gable did get his ass absolutely kicked, that's just what I've come to expect now, so I wasn't disappointed. And I always enjoy Sheamus being used. I just really like him. I think he's underrated, so they can have it up. Oh yeah, and he won after the bro kick. Of course he did. We then had AJ Styles coming to the ring with none other than Abyss from TNA. Obviously, he wasn't Abyss and he was Joseph Parks. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't even worry about it. But this made me so happy, and the segment was so good, I did a little dance. Honestly, I got up on my sofa and I was just like, let's go, AJ Styles. The dance of styles. Up. Because AJ was out here because he is absolutely enraged that people on his Twitch stream keep saying, oh, AJ, you should fight this guy for the Intercontinental title, and AJ, you should fight this guy, even though there is no evidence to suggest they should even be in the ring with him. But to try and figure out how to do this so it's all fair, AJ has come up with the phenomenal Intercontinental statistic system, his way of doing rankings for people that may be able to take him on. And yes, when you break it down, the acronym is PISS. I don't know whether we need to do that, but hey, we've done it before and I guess we'll do it again. AJ pulled it off, that's all that matters. He then revealed his piss board, and surprise, surprise, while he was top of it, there were no other names, because once again, nobody is deserving of this shot. Can we do more of stuff like this? It completely tied into his character. He pulled it off wonderfully. Joseph Parks somehow is like the greatest sideman to this. It was awesome. Somebody was always going to interrupt, and then my word, for the second time on the show, this person had a genuine reason for wanting to confront AJ Styles about his championship, because it was Jeff Hardy, and in 3 seconds he summed this up when he went, look, Sheamus took me out of the Intercontinental tournament, Sheamus absolute buffoon, I should have got my shot, I didn't, so I want it now. I can completely buy that. AJ then teased that he was going to put him on the board, but instead laughed it off, and honestly, I was cracking up to this. Styles is so damn good. So Jeff, being the strong babyface, beat him up. Yes, this is the kind of thing that I want to see. He also got a marker pen and wrote Jeff Hardy on the board too. I am in love with this flipping piss board. They all just played their roles so well. When AJ was freaking out in the back afterwards with Joseph Parks and he tried to wipe this off, he couldn't because it was in permanent marker. I mean, is that a little bit silly, ha? Yes, but again, did I love it? You know I did. Good old Joe also sold this like it was the worst thing in history, and instantly, he's my favorite person as well. Look how quick we did that. It took about 10 minutes. Then the Lucha House Party had to steal Cesaro's and Shinsuke Nakamura's tag team titles. I don't know, this doesn't even go anywhere. And yeah, that's when we got our kind of official announcement that we are going to be leaving the Performance Center and heading to the Amway Center in Florida, because Cole and Graves started talking about it on commentary. And yes, I know, it's like a big outdoor building and it's a little bit like AEW's Daily Place. I just don't care. I couldn't care less. Let them copy or not copy or whatever. There's also going to be some kind of fan digital interaction experience. I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's just my bald head talking to you, which would be very strange, admittedly. But to be honest, I'm just happy to be leaving the PC. I'm kind of done with it. Grand Metalik was then taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. And yeah, before this even kicked off, the tag champs just took their belts back. So you literally wasted my life, WWE. However, you just heard who was in this. Getting it up. Because it was good. Of course it was good. It was just two top-tier wrestlers doing top-tier wrestling. And you already know how it went down. Cesaro was getting involved, so Kalisto had to make his grand return. He had music and everything, and I was like, I don't even remember Kalisto not being here. And all this meant, of course, after, because you know how it works, Grand Metalik was able to hit his springboard elbow thing onto Shinsuke, and he got the 1, 2, 3. And to me, all this says is that at the pay-per-view, Cesaro and Nakamura will hold on to their titles. But whatever, I just switched off for this. They're all very athletic. I was then kind of baffled once again because Matt Riddle was being interviewed in the back and Caleb Braxton was like, are you worried about Baron Corbin? Baron Corbin's such a dick. Baron Corbin's coming after you. And Matt Riddle's like, bro, I don't care about anything. Look at me. And he was like surfing on a cloud. But then Shorty G arrived and he apologized to Matt. He's like, look, Matt, I shouldn't have done what I did last week. It was a mistake. I just got obsessed with the money. Hopefully you can understand that. Riddle's like, yeah, bro, let's just have a proper match, man. We'll fight and it will be really good. And then Baron did turn up. He beat up Riddle and looked at Shorty G, called him Chad or called him Gable, whatever he said, and was like, yeah, good work. Now, I'm all for shades of grey, but this one is just a little bit nonsensical, and tying into the match earlier and what the commentators were telling us, well, I don't know if we're coming or going, but I'll wait and see for now, but this needs some direction. The much hyped up throughout the day Alexa Bliss interview was next, and I don't even know how I would explain this to you, so I've reenacted it instead. Roll the footage.
Do you love Braun Strowman?
Do I what?
Do you love Braun?
I guess so. I mean, what even is love? The question is, do you love Braun Strowman?
It's not about me.
Well, maybe it is about you.
It's really not about
No, yeah, well, it could still very well be about you. I mean, look, me and Braun, we have a complicated history, but I understood him. I understood him like nobody else. I even chatted to Mrs. Strowman once, and I was like, Mrs. Strowman, you may have known Braun for 30 or so years, but I feel like I'm more in tune with him. So yes, maybe I do love him, maybe I don't love him. In fact, what business is it of yours? You come and sit me down here and start asking me these disgusting questions. I spit on you.
There was no need for that.
No, you're right, there was no reason for me to spit on you. But you come in here with your questions. I don't know what's going on. All of this is very hard for me. Look at my face. Look at my struggling, upset face. That should give you everything you need to know. Now please, if you could just say one kind of more ambiguous question, I will look off into the distance and we can end the segment.
What if you and Braun are meant to be together?
Does anyone really need a romantic storyline between Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman? And also, none of it really connects together, even more so when we get to our main event angle, but again, we'll talk about that when we'll talk about it. This just felt off, and I wasn't meant to, well, I didn't really believe it, I guess. I didn't really care, that's a problem. I didn't really believe it. It felt like people just saying words. Down. It was then time for attempt number 2 between John Morrison and Big E, and yes, once again, the meta storyline was everything to do with Retribution. But I like these two, and I like how these two get on. Let's get it up. And before we did get into all that crazy stuff, Johnny Boy and Big, they were having a really good match. There was this really awesome bit where Morrison did jump at Big E, but he's so strong, he basically just pushed him across the side of the ring, and he went flying. It looked awesome. And it is here when the lights started to flicker, and Cole was so scared, it was as if his dad had just come home and was about to whip him with his belt. And the first thing we saw when we cut to backstage to see Retribution just causing havoc was they locked somebody in a toilet. Yep. I mean, they also did wreck the place, and it was far more aggressive than it has been in recent weeks, but by this point, the entire roster was by the ringside because they were trying to protect Big E and John Morrison, and not one person said, by the way, they're in the back. And this was doubly frustrating because Michael Cole and Corey Graves knew this, and between them kept going, well, somebody should tell these people that Retribution are here. And I was like, yeah, you do it. They're feet away from you. Just go, oh, guys, you need to go backstage. Anyway, finally, they were told to do this, so they all ran that way, apart from The Miz, who had been on commentary the whole time, insulting Mandy Rose, and also Otis came out at one point to tell him to shut up, and I enjoyed that because it's the little things. And yes, I will admit, this was probably the best attack by Retribution because they were taking officials and referees and like chucking them through tables. They also did spray paint the WWE logo on the wall and put an X through it, and once again, that just feels like kids. I also would like to know why they're so much more mad at SmackDown than Raw, because when they turn up on Friday nights, they're much more pissed. But I'm just hoping that we continue with this escalation to the point where like, holy crap, Retribution are scary. They're not scary at the moment. Anyways, we then did get back to the match, and Big E was able to make John Morrison tap out with that stretch muffler that I guess he's making his new submission finish. I'm still a little bit upset that Johnny Boy has just become some top guy that everyone's allowed to beat, because for me, you could be doing Big E versus John Morrison for the Universal title, but I guess that's just my hill I'm gonna have to die on. Sheamus also bro-kicked Big E after this, so I suppose that's what we're doing next, and why Sheamus has gone back to being a heel. Really does hurt my brain. And then, I mean, what am I meant to do? What am I meant to do? It was everything between Braun, Bray, and Bliss, the 3 Bs, and I think what sums it up best is this. Ever wonder why a man suddenly appears wearing what is clearly a false moustache and is brandishing a pair of scissors? Even though when you clicked a video on YouTube, all you wanted is a rundown on SmackDown, the WWE show that airs on Friday nights. Well, sometimes stuff just happens. So if you're trying to figure out whether Shorty G, Jag Gable is a heel or a face, and if you're trying to figure out what's happening with Sheamus, the best thing you can do is ring us on 0800 Stuff Just Happens, because somebody is waiting to take your call. Seriously, what on earth? Braun is also now bald, which kind of did put a little bit of a damper, as I already mentioned, on the Sonya Deville versus Mandy Rose thing, because you're like, well, what the hell? Why has this guy got no hair either? And he also said that not only is he going to eviscerate the Fiend, but he's going to eat his entrails. Okay. I got nothing for you. I've got nothing for you. Yeah, usually this would be nobody talks like that, but entrails? Entrails? Would you like a definition of entrails? I'll give it to you. A person or animal's intestines or internal organs, especially when removed or exposed. So Braun Strowman is going to remove Bray Wyatt's organs and eat them. And this is after he has eviscerated the Fiend, which of course is to disembowel a person or animal. So it's a good thing that SmackDown was TV-14 as opposed to the usual PG, because that is not content for kids. Anyway, Strowman was out first, and he's just so mad, I presume, because Bray Wyatt drowned him, and he demanded for him to come to the ring right now, but he didn't get that. He, of course, got Alexa Bliss. She said that this isn't the Braun that she knows, and Strowman responded by saying, well, I don't care what you think, and I suggest that you leave here right now, and he wouldn't even look at her. He then reminded her that the reason he now doesn't trust her is because every single time somebody does have an encounter with the Fiend, they become something else, something darker, and this is actually very good storytelling by WWE, because even though Braun is saying this, he hasn't noticed that it's him who has changed. The Fiend has turned him into some kind of crazy dude, and he's losing it. And they didn't throw this in your face either. It was very, very subtle. It was out there should you wish to have jumped onto it, and that I appreciated, and that gets it up. Bliss, however, said that he is going to regret going after the Universal title and going after the Fiend, and because he wasn't giving her the time of day, she just started slapping him by going, yeah, Braun, you want some? I'm gonna give you some. And then they had a match, and Alexa Bliss won, and she is now the #1 contender for the Universal title. Half of that is made up. It really pissed off Strowman though, as it would piss off me. I'm annoyed at myself right now, because he picked up Alexa Bliss and he was going to throw her to the outside of the ring, but it was here when the lights started flickering, and I was like, well, you've created a bit of an issue for yourself here, WWE, because now I'm like, well, is it the Fiend or is it Retribution? Are they coming up to beat out Braun Strowman? But of course it was Bray Wyatt. The lights then went out completely, so Braun, I assume, just dropped Alexa Bliss, but when they came back on, Strowman now has magic powers, and he was on the big screen just going, ho, 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 ho. So technically, the Fiend, the bad guy in all of this, or so I assumed, saved the damsel in distress. Now this was the most awkward ending to SmackDown ever, because as Braun did laugh, Bray started to laugh as well, and at one point just stuck his tongue out, and I was like, why did he stick his tongue out? And my biggest problem is, if I was going to try and explain everything I'd just seen to somebody who wasn't into wrestling, I wouldn't be able to do it. It would be so convoluted, and it would be so weird. I don't really get where this is, and much like a lot else we've talked about on SmackDown, I don't know where it is going. It's going like this. See, look, I know where I'm going. Like Simon, go to the shop, and I just do that. Therefore, I has to get it down. And it's not like I didn't enjoy it. I was intrigued, but come on. It is so flubbed up. Which brought us to the end of SmackDown. I do appreciate WWE not just throwing all these stories out because it's not going 100% the way they want, but we do need some tightening of some loose ends. So I am gonna give it an up, am I? See, I'm not even sure anymore. What do you think? He doesn't know either. This is the strange thing about all of this. I'm enjoying it because it feels new, but you know, if I wasn't a wrestling fan and I put this on, would I think it was any good? You tell me. Anyway, it's more fun to be a positive Pete, give it up. Phew, man, boy howdy, it's getting weirder and weirder. Now make sure you do leave a comment below. I genuinely want to know what you think. I don't know what I think anymore. It's completely lost me in a sea of death. What is that? Anyway, like the video, share the video, leave a comment below, said that, subscribe, head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. I'm gonna go lay down. Watch retro ups and downs. 2011 was a good year.